How have you been, Daniel?
I've been great. I've been great. No complaints. All is well. God is good. All gratitude. It's all gratitude.
Excellent. That's good to
It's
hear.
the only way to survive, my friend.
You know, men like you are why children are happy, Daniel. The things that you do to entertain them, the joy you bring to their lives, you
Well,
know.
I would have nothing to bring if it weren't for men like you who
You know,
write the scripts and direct the shows.
oddly enough, and we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but in the what, 6 years since we did the show, something like that, 7 years? I don't even know now at
Oh
this
yeah,
point.
it's been about six, I think.
Um, it is
So yeah,
just
just for the audience, just so you know, I'm Danny Jacobs, voice actor, voice of King Julian and many other characters. This is Mitch Watson, showrunner of All Hail King Julian, and writer and director and just general genius. And with our segment here, we want you to, we're here a part of this YouTube-a-thon for 10kheroes.com. A amazing cause for finding new treatments to leukemia that are better than the ones we have. So who wouldn't be on board with that, right? It's a personal thing for me. I lost one of my favorite uncles to leukemia, so I'm sure most people have had someone close to them that they've.
I have actually a very, very good, one of my best friends from college, 2 years ago,
Oh
as a matter of
man,
fact.
it's
It's
terrible.
terrible.
It's a terrible disease, and but there's progress to be made, and it's being made, and you are helping out by just watching us reminisce and talk about our dream job that we have. And so we hope that you will visit 10kheroes.com and contribute if you have the means. You will feel better about it, and you will be coming up with a potential cure for leukemia that doesn't involve chemo. And for those of you who've been near people who've been through it, you know what that means. So thank you. Now, on to the show. So Mitchell, he's the guy
Uh,
who was heading up the whole All Hail King Julian project.
yes. Now, do you remember, Daniel, I remember when I first came on board, you had already been doing the voice in many of I think the cable movies, and I don't know that many people know this, that you were the stand-in for Sacha Baron Cohen, correct? When he couldn't be there?
Correct. That's how I kind of the the crazy story is that I was living in Detroit, where I'm from. I took a couple of my nieces and nephews to see the first Madagascar movie. And normally I just pinpoint whoever's doing the voice. I'm like, oh, that's got to be Ben Stiller. That's got to be David Schwimmer. And I'm like, who's doing that lemur voice? That is genius. I didn't even know who Sacha Baron Cohen was. Fast forward a few years later, I have moved to LA and I'm pursuing the voiceover thing, and I got asked to audition to do scratch recording for Madagascar 2 because Sasha wasn't going to be available to do his own recording, in the initial recording. He was off doing another project or whatever. So they hire people like me and, to try and give these great performances because they're going to start animating to it. And if you don't really bring anything, then you're not really inspiring the animators. And then the guy who comes, Sasha comes back in and he would record over what I did. So I auditioned, somehow I got it. And 4 years after seeing Madagascar 2 with my nieces and nephews, all of a sudden I'm on DreamWorks campus recording for Madagascar 2. So it was
Hmm.
pretty crazy. And then they started doing the Penguins of Madagascar TV series on Nickelodeon, which was a co-production with DreamWorks. And that one, it was kind of like Sasha wasn't interested. So it was kind of my job to lose. And thankfully I didn't lose it. So we did, like 82 episodes of that ran on Nickelodeon. And then pause. Um, I think we recorded that like 2007 to 2010 maybe, or 11. And then we didn't start All Hail until I think we started recording end of 2013, beginning of 2014, if I remember correctly. So
I know.
yeah, so
Yeah, because I was not there in the beginning. If you remember, there were
I
different
remember that.
people.
Yeah, they had a different crew that started
Yeah.
out, and there were some artistic differences apparently,
Yes.
and then you were there, and you're like, boom, I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, I got, I was
But
hired. Then the guy.
were you on the writing staff though?
Yeah, I was. I
Okay,
started as sort of I'd come over from Warner Brothers, and I had been hired to sort of wrangle the writing. And then the guys who were running it got into they were just like you said, artistic differences, and they quit.
right.
And then I think by that point the show was 2 months behind schedule or something, and there was nothing. I
Yeah,
mean, there was like I
I
think
remember. Well, Mark Schooley and I'm sorry, Bob Schooley and Mark McCorkle. They were
right,
the showrunners on Penguins of Madagascar. They're phenomenal. But the show All Hail was very different than Penguins of
yeah.
Madagascar. It
I
was a
think
totally different sense of humor, and
yeah,
so I think it worked out. I think they were just like you know we don't think we're the right guys for the job anymore because of the direction. It's like if that's the direction you're going in, it's like
yeah,
so
yeah.
it was
This
probably good that
I think
they chose to move
the
on.
studio had a particular show in their heads, and I think Bob and Mark had a different show in their heads, and you
Yeah,
know,
I think they were thinking like, well, we're assuming you hired us because you liked what we did on Penguins of Madagascar TV series, right? That was all very, very successful. But then the change in tone and sense of humor and the fact that we're no longer really aiming it at 6-year-olds
no,
at all.
yeah,
I mean, we went nuts on All Hail King Julian, so
yeah, we
it was
did.
very different.
And they, because I don't even know if you know this. They did 19 versions, I think, of the pilot, the original pilot for All Hail
I
King
did not
Julian.
know that. Wow.
About 19 different versions. The one that we finally ended up doing
You mean the
was
script?
the script.
Okay.
Yeah. And no, and they also did animatics too. I
Yeah.
believe the one that we ultimately did was finally something that was written by myself and a guy named Brendan Sawyer, who had been
Yeah,
on the show.
Brendan, yeah.
Brendan, who had been on the show at one point, and then he also left to go work on, I think, a feature. And I just
Maybe
remember
Boss
that.
Baby or something like that. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
genius.
no, it was. I forget. He went on. It was a different movie, and he went on to do The Boss Baby after that.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a great, great dude,
Yeah, yeah.
and but I just remember them filling me in of like, yeah, this is where we're at. So we've done 19 versions of this thing, and they just don't like any of them. And we already have these other episodes written that are being animated, and they're going to be coming back soon.
Yeah.
And then we're leaving. And then
Yeah.
they left, and the footage started coming back, and a lot of it was unusable because it wasn't the show ultimately that the show became. And I don't even
Right.
know if you know this. So we were so out of time that if you were one of the very early episodes, there's a whole thing about if the premise was that Julian gets wasted at a party and he promises something to the lemurs or something. I forget what it is, something like that. Or no, he says he's going to become their leader or something like that. It's where he starts a revolution against himself.
Oh,
It's one
yeah.
of the first 5 episodes. But
Classic King Julian.
that whole episode was basically cobbled together from unusable footage from shows that we couldn't use. But
It
we were
was
so behind that we had to take the footage and we look at it and
wow.
go, we need to make an episode out of this or we're going to run completely out of time, and which is what we did.
And that is the mother of invention right there, isn't it?
Yeah, so, but that was sort of how I think it also helped sort of set the tone for the show too, because we realized that we could do a lot of cutaway gags and really fast things we had to do them
Oh,
out of
that's interesting.
necessity. and stuff. And that became sort of the DNA of the show, which ultimately led us to what I consider the best season of the show that we did, which was season 5.
I was going to ask you because
Yeah,
for those who, there was this weird labeling of it on Netflix where season 5 became a separate show. It was categorized as a separate show. And to this day, if you go on IMDb, you'll see 2 different shows: All Hail King Julian, 5 seasons, and then you'll see another show called All Hail King Julian Exiled,
Exile.
1 season.
Yeah, one
But if
season.
you go now where it's you have to go on like Amazon Prime or Apple TV. If you go to buy it, it's All Hail King Julian 6 seasons. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
all
it
very,
is.
but
Yeah, it's technically 6 seasons. I don't know why
yeah,
they considered the 5th season. I think because the 5th season was a standalone,
yeah.
like season-long storyline that was so insane
And it broke all
that
the rules, right? Didn't they tell you we don't want any? I remember they were saying we don't want any teasers from week to week. We don't want this. And we were like, instead of like listening to that, we actually did the theme song, and
oh no,
we
this
had
is
they didn't want
well,
any recaps. Remember?
that's sort of correct. So what happened was this makes this to by the way, to people who've never seen it, none of this will make
Right,
sense.
of course
But
not. But maybe
basically,
you'll go see it now, huh?
basically contractually for Netflix, we weren't allowed to do a previously on last week,
Right,
which wasn't a problem because all the shows were standalone until we got to that 5th season and we realized we have to do recaps or people aren't going to know what's going on. And they're like,
right.
well, you can't have any time from the actual episode to do a recap. And so we were like, well, what do we do? And then
You had to
and at one
squeeze
point
it into the.
we came up with the idea that fine, we'll just do an original song that's a recap for every single episode. And I think I remember telling you, and you were like, "That's insane,"
I was so happy. Are you kidding me? Like you're telling me I get to
because you like to
sing.
sing.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I just saw one of the episodes recently where, it was a mouthful, like to put on all the, and Mort gave up his freedom for defeat. And da da
Yeah.
da, da da
Yeah.
da. And then we got to do that fun like chapter deuce
Zeus.
or
Yeah.
whatever it
So
was.
I think we tried a different language for every single
Yeah.
one of those. Yeah,
And then
there's
Mort
footage
would come in and
somewhere
say
of me.
something. Quiet,
What's
Mort.
that?
Then Mort would come in and say, "Quiet, Mort. It's starting." Like you're watching a movie together or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there is footage somewhere of me singing every one of those theme songs for
Oh, I
the
gotta have it.
for the crew, for the animators, so that they would get what we were going for. That was a major. We never got a lot of credit for that. I was always feeling like didn't nobody. I was always like, did anyone notice that we did an original opening title sequence for I think what 12 episodes, 13
Oh
episodes.
man,
You
there was
know,
so much good music on there, and Fred did a great job with the music, and
Freddie Weedman.
I mean, uh, True Bromance is big time.
Well, True Romance, the Emmy. You mean
Emmy
True
award
Romance?
winning
The
True
Emmy.
Bromance. That's
Well, let
right.
me see if you can see it. No, it's on my wall. You can't. You can
Do you have
sort
the
of
Emmy in
right
there?
here. It's me and Fred. I don't think I
Oh,
can
the
get this thing
photo of you
off.
and Freddie.
It's me and Freddie over. You can't see it.
That's
Whoops.
right.
My crazy
I was
outfit.
so overjoyed when you guys won for that because I thought it was so good and I was so proud to be a part of it and to contribute to whatever I could contribute to it. And Freddie's, salt of the earth guy. And yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Fred told me later after the series was done, he was like his wife actually said, she goes, he was so happy working on that show because he finally got to like exercise all his different muscles as opposed to
Yes.
the normal stuff that he'll do because he does a lot of horror movies,
Mm.
he does a lot of other television shows, but he never gets to write songs. And I guess he loved writing the songs with us.
Oh,
So,
he's great at it. So
and
it's
he's really great at it. I mean, I've worked with him now a couple more times since then. And I just Freddie's always game for everything. But
yeah.
anyways,
I was gonna add, let's talk a little bit. I mean, it's amazing. We did 78 episodes,
yes,
78 22-minute episodes.
22s, yeah.
And I remember the big difference between recording Penguins of Madagascar for Nickelodeon and our show All Hail King Julian on Netflix was that Penguins of Madagascar was only 11-minute episodes. And we would record 11-minute episodes in that 4-hour time slot for the session time slot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would get it done like in an hour and a half, and we'd goof around for like 3 hours in between takes,
Mm-hmm.
and we would just run with the line. But when we did All Hail, it was like we had to just, and that's where Colette came in. When she was directing, she was like, we gotta get this done. We start around between takes and we'll never get finished.
I don't know how you guys did Penguins, but just for those who don't know, the way we always did Julian and the way I've done every show I've done is we do them as an ensemble record, as much of an ensemble record as we can possibly do.
Yeah, and we did the same thing
generally
for
on
Penguins.
Julian, we were able to get most of the main cast except for Andy Richter, because Andy liked to record by himself. So Andy would come in first, do his bit, and then we get you and Kevin and India de Beaufort.
Yes, I was gonna say we should talk about the staff, the amazing staff of writers we had and directors, and then let's talk a little about the amazing cast after that. So I just saw let's see, some of the writers were Nick Belisle, right?
Yes, Nick's.
Michael Ryan, um, Sharon Flynn, who I think like she kind of cut her teeth doing that show, didn't she? A little bit. She became very high in demand after that show.
Both Nick's. It was the first show for Nick's, the first show for Sharon, and the first show also for Ben Lapidus.
And Ben Bones.
Yeah, with Bone Dust, and then
Bone Dust. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Ryan and I had we'd worked together. We've done a bunch of stuff, and then Elliot Owen was the other writer, and it was Elliot's first animated show.
Okay.
So we had, because basically both Sharon, Ben, and Nick's were all writers' assistants.
And they crushed it. Like, I remember like their first scripts were so good. It was just like, okay, well, let's hope we can keep them on board and they don't get headhunted away somehow. It's like,
yes, that happened with Sharon.
Yep.
Who was.
That's
I stupidly helped Sharon get her agent, and then that agent whisked her away. And I've never been able to work with her again. She's
too good.
She's actually like 3 doors down from me at Nickelodeon right now. I see her all the time.
Oh, that's amazing. But yeah, give her my best.
I've never gotten to work with her again because, they took her. That's happened to me with a bunch of her. Same thing with Mike Ryan. They get whisked away, and Elliot too, actually. Although Elliot I've gotten to work with a bunch of times since then.
And then was Brett Halland the main animation director?
Brett was sort of he was the other EP with me, but he handled more of the director side and the art stuff, the art.
Yeah, amazing talent.
Brett Halland, the greatest human being, one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. Compared to me at least, who can be a little bit loud, perhaps sometimes, and boisterous, and causing trouble. Brett Halland is the Zen. What did we used to call Brett? Like the Indian. We would call him the Indian or the Zen Indian because he's just so calm.
He is.
He's got that long hair.
He's one of those dudes. He's like a litmus test guy for me. Like there's certain people I know in my life. It's like if someone works with him and has a problem, that means that the other person's the problem.
Yeah,
right.
It's 100%. Because if you couldn't get along with Brett, there's something.
It's hopeless. You can't get along with anyone, right?
It's totally true, though.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's a litmus test guy.
What always blew me away with Brett, because I didn't know him before working on the show, and then we became friends. He's so mellow and so like low key, and then he would direct these things and stage these sequences that were crazy, and I'm like, where did that come from? What part of what made me always believe was that there was a seething, ugly anger inside of Brett, just waiting to come out.
Still waters run deep, man. You never know what's going on inside there.
Those guys that you meet in your life who are like really, tightly wound and mellow and everything seems great on the outside, they're the deadliest, in my opinion. They're the ones who
Quite
become,
possibly.
serial killers and, and whatnot. And I'm not saying that Brett is a serial killer, but we don't know that.
We don't know
We
that.
don't know that he's not.
Just don't
So,
poke the bear is the moral of the story.
exactly, yeah.
Let still waters be still.
I mean, Colette Sunderman, the voice director, our voice director, exactly the same, sweet and kind
Yeah.
on the outside,
Quite
but
sweet.
just a bubbling, churning vat of acid, on the inside. You know it's there. You know it's there.
I'm not going there. I've never seen that side of her. I hope I never
neither,
do. I hope it doesn't
neither have I.
exist.
No, I've
But hey,
never
if someone's
never
human,
seen it either.
I figure if someone's human, they've got every side. Now, whether they've had to access it or not, that's a different story.
Yeah. No,
Usually
Brett is
you don't see the real dark
kind
stuff
person.
unless you marry someone, right?
Yeah. Well,
Oh, be careful.
not not going to walk down that path.
Yeah,
Not going to
smart.
go.
Good
Not going to
save.
take that bait.
Yeah, good save.
No, because my wife loves watching telethons on YouTube, so that's where she's going to see
She's
this.
gonna have her popcorn. She can be like,
Yeah, she and my kids.
um,
Um,
so
yes,
now our regular cast was phenomenal.
yep.
India de Beaufort as Clover.
Also, never done animation before when we did that show.
Amazing. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, and
By the way,
she is now on Night Court, by the way. You know that?
yes, she
She's
is.
the lead on Night Court.
Do you know,
She's
James?
this generation's Marky Post. Did you ever think about that?
No, no. I like. I don't. That's a big compliment to her, but because I love Marky
To
Post when I
Marky.
was a
Yeah,
kid.
I did too. Yeah.
But India, I don't know. I'm probably in
India's
favor.
special talent.
She
But
is. Do
then,
you know how many? Do you know how many actresses we auditioned for that part?
oh man, I think I heard this a long time ago. I remember recording in the beginning with at least one other actress who ended up getting replaced.
Yes, yes, you did in the very beginning. That
And
was prior to me coming on. Yep.
yeah, and it was
Take a guess.
I remember when we were first recording, like with not with India, with the previous iteration,
Yeah.
and I was like, um, is this what they're, like I didn't know how it was going to work. I couldn't see it. She's a
Yeah.
great she's a wonderful actress. But
Yep.
what she was bringing to Clover was completely different. Then
It was
when
a different
India
character.
came in,
Yeah.
and it just was like, oh man, it just took on a whole different thing. And then of course we had Kevin Michael
Hold on, but
Richardson.
before
Oh
we
yeah,
jump to Kev,
yeah.
I want you to guess how many actresses
Oh yeah,
we auditioned for that part.
that you auditioned for it, or
That
that called
auditioned. How many
back
actors auditioned for the part of Clover before India got it?
auditioned. I would
Audition.
say 400, 500.
Over 900.
Wow.
I think my understanding is it's the most they've ever auditioned for any show. Maybe they have since then, but certainly at that time, the most ever. We auditioned everybody. I mean, we auditioned some pretty well-known people, like some really, really great British female comedians.
Yeah.
Couple of the actresses from The Walking Dead. I mean, we there was a ton of people
Wow.
and really good people, and India just came in and just she
Yeah,
wrote.
I mean, she had the really difficult job because out of all the lead characters, she was the one that was creating the new character.
Yep.
Like with Kevin's character, and well, I mean, we did have a lot of new characters on the show, but Clover's role, I mean, trying to kind of like fit in a brand new character on the level with King Julian and Mort and Maurice. Like you're trying to complete a little
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore there.
Three
And
super
she
strong
did it.
characters.
She did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
It's
and we
amazing.
was and it was even harder because we specifically didn't want her to be what is considered like the typical female character on a show, which is like, oh, you guys, stop that. The
Right.
voice of reason. We were
Right.
like, no, we want that character to be just as crazy as Julian in her
Yeah.
own way.
It was great because she was a Jekyll and Hyde. She was like the
Yeah.
stern taskmaster who wanted order and obedience, but then she was completely fly off the handle with her
Totally
other,
unhinged.
with
Yeah.
her freak flag flying stuff.
And it was, and I have to give it up for India too, because she got stuck in the room with you and Kevin and who else?
Jeff Bennett,
Jeff Bennett was another one that was in there all the
yep,
time, and
JB,
JB Blanc, and
and
some really.
Dwight was amazing.
Oh, and Dwight. God, I love Dwight.
He was
Yeah, I mean,
so
some
good as
heavy
Carl.
hitters. And you guys are all really good at improvising as well. So, you guys would you and Bennett and Andy Richter especially, and Kevin too, I should say.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Olin.
Kevin, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys improvise all the time, and she got thrown into the midst of all that and just
She
crushed it.
never missed a beat. And
Yeah.
it just felt like the whole thing just like gelled and we were like, okay, now we got, once we get, and then Henry comes in.
Well, Winkler, when
Henry
Winkler
Winkler.
came in, and she was our secret weapon with Winkler because he loved working with India.
Oh, he loved it. Well, who doesn't love India? I mean, I'm not going to fault Henry for having a crush on India. Who doesn't? But
Yeah,
um,
and Henry's a really interesting guy too because I had never worked with him before that series. And what I didn't know about him and learned from that series and brought it forth into a different series that I worked on him with was that Henry loves to work with people. He doesn't, a lot
yes,
of times they record animation one person at a time. So you're never reacting off of anybody, but Henry
right.
really likes to react off of people. And he likes that interplay. He's
Yeah,
also an improviser as well.
actor's
And
actor.
so when we discovered that, I remember on Julian, we started bringing him in with you guys all the time. And those are some of my favorite records because he was always like, he was so game and he was just like, I'm not going to be
Yes.
upset by these guys. And he would just go toe to toe with you guys. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
a lot of people, you wouldn't think, I mean, my favorite, there's two favorite stories. I mean, I felt so good. It was such an, Henry was so complimentary because I heard that what the records were kind of dry and lifeless because he doesn't want to be, none of us want to be alone in a studio
Right.
when we could be doing group records. And Henry being by himself in the studio, he has no idea what the rest of us are doing. So he doesn't
Or
know
what you sound like? Yeah,
what we
nothing.
sound like. He
Yeah.
doesn't know the size, like how big we're going or anything like that. So I remember when he I don't know if he requested or something happened where he finally said he wanted to come in and record with us. And from the first day, I could feel him looking through the baffle at me.
No,
And he
that
was
came.
like, he was so happy to record with us. And his performance apparently came to life, and our performances came to life more because it's Henry and he's doing this crazy stuff. I have outtakes that I record on my phone that
Mhm.
I'll talk about, but so funny. And one of my favorite things that happened the first day he came in to record with us was Kevin Michael Richardson was out in the lobby, and I was in the booth, and I think maybe Jeff and India were in there. And Henry comes in, oh, so nice to meet you, Mr. Winkler. Oh, please call me Henry, blah, 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 blah. So, all the great stories you hear about him being such a down-to-earth, great guy are all true in spades. And then I said something like, man, you even smell good. He's like, oh, you like it? You like it? It's from France. I got it from France. It was a gift from my daughter, my grand. So he's in the middle of talking about this fleur. It's called fleur de blah 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 or something. Kevin walks in and he goes, "Hey, Mr. Winkler, oh please call me." And Henry's still engaged in the in the cologne story. So
Mhm.
he goes like this to Kevin, and
Yeah.
Kevin kisses him on the cheek, thinking that he's gesturing like, "Give me a kiss, bud. Now
Kiss
that we're
me.
working together."
Kiss me, you understand?
And
That's how Henry Winkler works. Yeah.
Kevin kisses him on the cheek. And Henry goes,
Uh-huh.
no, I meant smell, my cologne. It was an all-time great
And knowing
moment.
Kevin, I could just see Kevin getting all awkward. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
he was like, I'm so, let me just go over to my corner.
He's like, oh, I'm gonna walk over here now, Mr. Winkler. Oh.
But
Yeah.
Kevin is always just pure genius. You
Well,
know,
Kevin, who created the character of Butterfish on the show, which became a regular character, simply because I think in the first season, whenever we would need Walla sounds, Walla being like background sounds from people,
right.
inevitably Kevin would do this voice. He'd do this, well, oh, yeah. He'd do this really deep voice, and we would always laugh because there was the one voice we could hear. And so eventually we kept saying, do that voice again, Kevin. And he would do it, and then finally we were like, God, we need to name that character and just give him a character. And I think it was Elliot Owen who came up with the name Butterfish.
Butterfish.
And then we were like, who is Butterfish? We're like, Butterfish he'll be the sort of loser boyfriend of, God, the mother character, the single
Tammy, was it
mom.
Tammy?
Tammy. Tammy, whose
Which was
son,
Deborah
Deborah
Wilson.
Wilson.
Another
Yeah,
genius.
Tammy, whose son was, who was the son was Julian's nemesis because Julian felt he was more
Yeah.
talented.
Wasn't it Todd?
Todd. Todd. Yeah, and then
My
Butterfish.
baby.
I remember when Kevin asked me, well, what is this character? Who is this guy? And I said, just imagine a guy who gets high all day and plays video games, and that's his job. And every time somebody asks him to do something, that's when he goes, oh, I gotta go to work.
Go to work.
Sorry, babe, I gotta go to work.
I gotta go to work. I loved it. I remember being in the sessions going, there were so many things on that series that I was just like, I can't wait to see how this is going to work because I couldn't see it. But now all the stuff that seemed the most weirdest to me when I go back and watch it is the stuff that makes me laugh the hardest.
Oh yeah.
It's
I mean,
just like so crazy and
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that episode. Like if you remember the one episode where Masakura moves in with Mort when Mort has been kicked out of. Oh no, Masakura quits and she's looking for a place to live because she gets into a beef.
She
with
quits being advisor to the king or whatever, right?
Yeah, and she moves in into Mort's tree stump with him, and it quickly becomes clear that Mort is homicidal and had a former roommate, and he starts talking about every one of his former roommates has died under mysterious circumstances.
For those of you who have not seen the All Hail King Julian series, you will not believe who Mort really is. There is so much revealed about Mort.
I remember one time Margie Cohen, who's the head of the president of DreamWorks Animation.
Margie's great.
Somebody asked Margie how old Mort was, and she was like, "Mort's a child. He's a child." And I think Kelly Kolchak, another executive, had who was like, no, Mort is thousands of years old. According to what we came up with. He's been around, he's been living for thousands of years, absorbing his relatives.
She was like, I go away on one weekend trip and I come back and Mort has aged 1,000 years.
Exactly. It's like, I used to see Margie's eyes rolling back in her head just going, I take my eye off this show for one day.
Wait, Mort is 1,000 years old? I can see it.
Yeah.
Oh, not only that, he's a multi-dimensional being.
Multi-dimensional being. And there's an entire planet of creatures that look just like Mort that is ruled over by a character named Mortimus.
Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the series, you're in for quite a treat. It's a ride.
Here, the funny thing about Mort, and this literally just happened today. I was talking to somebody, and my kids have told me this too, is that Mort, especially the show, but Mort especially they've become really popular with kids, and they're constantly repeating lines. Like there's a meme that I've been shown that's up online of Mort going, it was a line from I think it was a line from the fifth season where Mort has gone insane and he's talking about rounding everybody up and what he's going to do to them, and then he's like, and the women Oh, the
Oh,
women, the
yes.
women. And then he goes, we must always treat with
With
respect.
respect. I just saw that. Yeah.
You just said that is
He's
becoming,
so memeable.
yeah, a
So
very popular
memeable.
meme.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a bunch of edits, fan edits that are like all the innuendo moments,
with
and
Mort
it'll just
in his
with
photo
all of the
session.
whole show.
Yeah.
There's so many things where and it'll say like all hail King Julian is sus, and then it'll be this edit of all these
Sus.
like innuendo. Some of the innuendo we intended, some of it we didn't intend. It's just the fans kind of hearing what they want to hear.
No, I mean there's I don't know if you remember this one. Do you remember the one where Julian and Mort, no, I'm sorry, Julian and Maurice launched themselves in a rocket and they believe that they've landed on the moon.
It's one of
And
my favorites.
Julian then, I forget why he does it, but he decides that they're gonna take possession of the moon by putting their scent on it. So he begins rubbing himself on cactus repeatedly,
Yes.
screaming horribly in pain while doing it.
Yes. What I remember about that episode is that we snuck in the David Bowie reference, and shortly
Major Tom?
thereafter, yeah, it was the Major Tom. It was um, I said like I just improvised it. I think I was like, I'm floating in a most peculiar way.
Yeah, yeah,
But then
yep.
he ended up passing away right after that, and it kind of felt
Killed
like a
him.
tribute, like a little.
You killed him, Danny.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
got him. That
Hopefully he's in
joke,
a better place now.
that joke killed him.
But I
Uh,
was like, I felt like, well, that was our little tribute to David Bowie.
yeah, but let's like, who was? Oh God, why can't I remember his name? Who played Nurse Phantom?
Oh,
Um,
David Keckner,
Dave Keckner.
right?
Dave Keckner, who came
He was
in.
and he played the Rob, the best friend.
Well, it was Rob. Well, Rob turns
Oh,
into
that's
Nurse
right.
Phantom.
That's
Remember,
right.
Rob is Julian's high school buddy that he started a rap duo with, who had then gone off. Another lemur who'd gone
Or
off and gotten
a
so much
boy
plastic.
band or some sort,
It
right?
was a boy band. It was a boy band. And he'd gone off and gotten so much plastic surgery that he could barely move his face.
Yeah,
And
he's like,
then and
it
Mort
is.
gets into a fight with him and unravels all of his plastic surgery so that his face sort of falls. And he becomes the nurse to the snake that played by Jeff Bennett,
Right,
who lives in
right.
the cave.
That is so Rob. That's what it was.
That's what it was.
But then they opened Club Moist,
Club Moist. Yeah, that was the
and there's
episode.
the auditions for the talent.
Yeah, yeah. And they're gonna. That was the one where he comes back and he's going to steal Julian's brain. Ugh.
Right. Oh, and then well, Jeff was the voice of the Snake Doctor, right? What was his
Yeah, Jeff
name?
was the voice. What was the snake doctor's name?
I don't remember, but I remember he was always saying, "In a cave." Right? He was doing like, well, you can't expect much when you're doing surgery in a cave.
Cave.
He was doing that like that Peter Lorre type of voice, right?
Yep.
Jeff's a genius.
We had so much fun with
But then we
that.
had the lead characters were it was myself, Andy Richter as Mort, of course, Kevin Michael Richardson as Maurice and Butterfish and Zora.
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 Oh, that was. I just
Oh.
remember whenever Zora came on, I looked through the glass and your head was down. That's all I saw. I'm like, I don't even know how he's listening. He's just laughing the whole time. And all of us were trying not to ruin the take in there, just covering our mouths. And we had India de Beaufort as Clover. One of my favorite things that India did was there was an episode where she kind of had to imitate a King Julian-like voice.
Yeah.
Like
Was that the one where
it was like she was like the female version of Chair Lemur Table. Oh, Chair Lemur Table. Julian puts the fake mustache up, and no one knows it's him.
and nobody knows it's him?
Wait, what's your name? You sound like he's like, oh no, my name is Chair Lemur Table.
Table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did a version of that. She was like, like
Was that the one? Was that
house,
the one with Carl's brother with the
potentially,
Flavor Saver episode? No,
quite possibly.
quite possibly.
And then we had well, let's see, and then we had a lot of great recurring characters. JB,
Jake Long.
Maurice LaMarche played Kodo,
Yep.
and then Rob Paulson was the spasmodic
The map.
glandular.
He
He
was
was
the
like,
pirate,
"Oh, I'm gonna
right?
go over to the tree."
And
Spasm of his gland on at the end of every line.
and it was and then the genius whatchamacallit, oh God, why can't I remember his name? David Krumholtz
David
as
Krumholtz, yes, as Timo. Timo.
as Timo. Yes.
Yeah, Krumholtz was genius. He came in and recorded with us too. He
Yeah.
wasn't above that. He was really fun to record with, and then when he could, and then we had Betsy.
Betsy Sidaro,
And
who I'm working with again. Yeah, Betsy who plays Gigi.
Gigi.
So
Gigi, we're
who was
never gonna
so
die.
who was
Spring
so
break, y'all.
Do you remember?
So good.
Do you remember the episode? And we had to cut this. They made us cut this out, or they made us change it. But there
If
was
they
one of
made
my,
you cut or change something on that show, it had to be pretty severe.
yeah. It was God. It's still one of my favorite is one of my favorite jokes from the show. But it was. I don't remember what the episode was about, but I do remember that it was Gigi and Mort. That is the spring break episode. She goes, "Spring break. Oh yeah, we're never gonna die." And then the next time you see them is Mort waking up on a beach, and he's like, "Oh," and he doesn't remember what happened. And he looks over, and Gigi is lying dead next to him in a puddle of vomit. And and his response is not to try to help her. It's to go, "Oh, why does this keep happening to me? Just remember, do what you always do, Mort, and walk away." And he starts backing up, and then she wakes up. And I remember I think it made it all the way through to animation before an executive went, wait a minute. Is she in a puddle of vomit?
Are you implying?
We can't do this.
Are
We
you
can't have her.
implying?
We can't have her lying face down in a puddle of vomit. So
Oh, yes, we can. We just did. You can
we
see it
did.
right there.
It's actually right
It's right
there.
there.
We can
Yeah.
look.
Oh my
Yeah, that
gosh.
was one of my favorite crazy bits that we did with her, and that was when we discovered. And there was another line that I got that I actually got in trouble for, where it was the Club Moist episode where they send Gigi out to get patrons to come to the club because Julian thinks no one's going to show up, and she has a line of, "You have no idea what I had to do with my beak to get those people in here." And they got so mad. They got
Oh
very
man.
mad
I
about
I
that.
remember improvise. I was so excited. I improvised something. It was an episode where we thought that all the lemurs were gonna die legitimately somehow.
They all
And
thought there
and
was
then
one. Yeah, there was where they all grab hands at the end because they
well,
think
it's the one where King Julian says, we have to repopulate the island. He goes, Clover, you're with me. He
that's the
goes,
pilot.
and then he goes, is the pilot?
Yeah, because
And then he
I
says,
wrote that.
Maurice, Masikura, good luck.
Good luck.
It was
Yeah,
like, is
that was the
is
pilot.
this gonna get through? It actually got through. I don't know if we had to change it at all, but we got it somehow
No,
got it through.
I think that line. Who loved that? You know what? I think Margie really liked that line. She really thought that line was funny, and so we got that one through because I remember that was in the pilot, and we didn't think that one was actually going to get through, but I think Margie really liked that one. She was a
She
big
has a
supporter.
great sense of humor. I actually was asked
Very good sense
to
of humor.
I was asked to introduce her for some award she got for Animation Magazine. And I wrote this whole thing that was like implied a lot of crazy stuff about her past as King Julian, like King Julian just spouting off. Oh, Margie in her younger days, like that kind of stuff. And she was so tickled by it. She just
Oh yeah.
such a great sport about it. But
No, she was always, she was like our number one fan. She was a big supporter of the show and
She's a great
largely,
executive. She's a great
yeah,
executive.
and really responsible for a lot, what we were allowed to do, and
Yeah.
and very, very grateful and very appreciative too of the
Yeah.
hard a lot of stuff we did, and when we won the Emmy, I think she felt pretty validated. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, she was our number one cheerleader, so
Yeah. It's
it was a
great.
great
Great.
experience with
Just
her.
great, great leader. So I want to hit some of these other ones because
Yeah.
when I was studying the theater, the classical theater
Yes.
in the university, which you did too. We were both Pac-10 theater students. We've talked
Yes.
about that. I went to University of Arizona. Mitch went to UCLA.
UCLA.
And I did dream that someday I'd be working with Angelica Houston,
Oh, that's right.
but I did never imagined it that quite that way because John Michael Higgins played Julian's father, and Angelica Houston plays my mother, King Julian's
Yeah.
mother. And in addition to having Henry Winkler play Uncle King Julian. I mean, you've got all these like A-listers, literal
That was
A-listers.
Trust me, that was, yeah, Angelica was, again, another person I didn't think we could actually get on the show. And then when she was there, I was I had to voice director, and I think at that point, because I don't know, that was later in the later season, so I think that was when I was voice directing. And she, as a student of Hollywood history,
Yes.
Angelica Houston is like royalty.
Hollywood royalty, her
You
family.
know, and so, she's been around forever with Jack Nicholson and everybody, and her father, John. Yeah. So
Big time.
I was ridiculously intimidated by her.
Yeah.
And she couldn't have been nicer, a nicer person. So,
Yeah.
it's always amazing. I don't think we had any jerks that actually ended up coming on the show. It was that, in
No, that
general,
was
that
my
doesn't
rule.
happen. I've always found that most people who show up to do animation are, for the most part, in a good mood. I've only had one or two bad experiences with actors,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm always surprised when somebody of that caliber comes in and they're super cool.
Well, a
They're
lot of
just,
times I've noticed too that you wouldn't think this because in the pecking order of Hollywood, they're way above the average working voice actor like myself. But a lot of times they get nervous because it's not necessarily their wheelhouse.
yeah, their
Because
wheelhouse.
they think it's so different than on-camera acting. And a couple times you could just tell that people need to be put at ease a little bit. Like, hey, it's no big deal. We're all here doing this thing. Then they kind of relax and then they're fine. But yeah, you wouldn't think that these big stars would come in. But that's why a lot of times I think sometimes people don't want to record with the group because they're like, some of the ones that are more shy, introverted, they're like, I don't want to have to deal with that. But then you have the Henry Winklers of the world and you
Yeah.
know, and John Michael Higgins actually recorded with us one time, or with me.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have been nicer and more down to earth, and talented. Obviously, all these people are so talented. So that we had those people. We had Dwight Schultz. It's Schultz, right? Dwight Schultz,
Dwight Schultz,
the
who,
genius.
again, just crushed, for those of you who don't, Dwight, who played essentially the running villain on the show, Carl,
Carl.
Julian's nemesis. The original, you may not know this, Dwight was, again, also not the first person who was cast in that role. The original person that I wanted to cast was Udo Kier,
I
because
remember that he came in to record too.
yeah, because I had worked with Udo on Mystery Incorporated, and he and I became friends, and I just think he's a wonderful guy and another sort of, in my opinion, legendary,
Yeah,
European actor, just and a terrific and just the most amazing stories ever. And when we started looking for somebody to do Carl, he was my first choice. I was like, oh, well, let's have him do it.
yeah, yeah.
And then he came in and he did it, and I thought he was great personally, but a
Right.
lot of people thought that his accent was too hard to understand. And so then we got Dwight Schultz, and Dwight just crushed it.
They were
Dwight
different. Like,
brought something to it that I think Udo probably would have too, but in a different way, of this
yeah,
sort of sad pathos to Carl. That
yeah.
Carl was, yes, he came off as this evil Bond villain, but in reality, he was just really sort of sad and alone,
Lonely.
and he wanted Julian to be his nemesis, but also basically so he'd have a friend.
Companionship, yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, they would have been totally. It's kind of. It reminds me of like when you see the casting sessions for The Godfather, and they had De Niro come in and read for Sonny.
Yeah.
Like it was great, but it was a total. It was
Yeah, it's just
like
different.
Francis Ford Coppola. Like he would have been like this killer Sonny. We wouldn't have worried. It was great, but it would have been totally different dynamic. So, but yeah, I do
Yeah.
remember. I remember when Udo came in and we recorded, and just thinking, wow, this could be great. But then Dwight. I mean, Dwight is I mean, I was a fan of his since the A Team.
Yeah, exactly.
He's so free and so creative
Yep.
that he just
And
will bring all these different choices and you can just kind
yeah,
of
I
go
mean,
through all the
really,
colors.
yeah, really odd things that Dwight would come up with, and then and because of that, we just found more stuff for that character to do. Like
Yeah, the character just kept growing and growing.
we gave him the weird love interest that he was in love with a cockroach,
Yep. Yep,
that
the
that
cockroach
he
was a
goes that he goes away with. He goes away to a romantic island with at the end of the series in a balloon. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
Chauncey,
Chauncey, that's right. That was
Chauncey. Let's go, Chauncey. We're not wanted here.
it.
And Kevin was Chauncey,
Yeah, Kevin was doing
doing the cockroaches sounds. And then we had Maurice LaMarche as Kodo. We had who
Yeah.
else? We had we mentioned oh, you know what I love? One of the favorite episodes is when Kari Walgren came in to play female King Julian because there were all these King Julian clones and one of them came out female.
Right.
So she was like, and Julian
Yeah.
sees her and he
Julian falls
falls.
in love with her.
Yeah. And she's like, Enchanté. She's doing like the king. She's doing the.
Yeah.
I just always love that. Kari,
Yeah. Then
another
we had
genius.
also had Frank Welker,
Frank Welker
who
came in, the
came in
obligatory.
and did
Yeah.
it was Mort's uncle, right? Wasn't he? I think he was Mort's uncle in the episode
Something,
where they go
or
into the
grandfather or something. Yeah.
crazy Carl's crazy fun house and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then
That
but
was
then
and then
we had Eugene Merman
who did you
as the
remember?
Scorpion.
No, the Scorpion was
Wait,
played
who
by
was the Scorpion?
the guy from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, who is that? I thought that was
Who is
Eugene.
it? He's great. Yeah, he's a well-known voice actor. Voice. Jesus, hold on.
He was great. And then we had John Heater from
John
Napoleon
Heater.
Dynamite, right? He played the tentacle.
Yes, the tentacle.
You can't hear the word tentacle without. I always think I have the outtakes. I happen to be recording the day that India was. She kept bloopering her line because she slipped out. She slipped and said something other than tentacle, and then she had to do like 10 other takes of it without trying to say the word
Yeah.
for male
Well, by
gonads.
the way, H. John Benjamin
H.
played
John, that's who was the.
the giant scorpion. Yep,
Wow.
H. John Benjamin.
Yeah, he was great.
But yeah, the tentacle, another crazy idea, a crazy joke that morphed into something much bigger when we discover that the tentacle is actually an alien tentacle from another planet,
Right.
wanted to be a poet, but his father wanted him to be a baseball
He
player.
wanted to be a jock, yeah.
So
Is he
he
always
left his
talking
planet.
about sports?
Yes,
Did your,
sports.
did your dad always try to push you into sports? No, buddy, but it's kind of the same thing. Julian, I love that scene because Julian's like, aha! He's like, father issues. I'm in. And he goes, and he starts going, hey, bud, starts working on his psyche.
Oh, God. There were so many fun things. And then, oh no,
Amazing.
and also too, we're completely forgetting Jeff Bennett as
I
who
mean,
was Clover's love interest.
oh man, Sage.
Sage.
So good. Well, Jeff was Sage. He was Willie. He was
Yeah.
Horst.
Horst.
He was the snake doctor. He was he was when we had the snails. He was Edwin's snail
He was
voice.
Edwin character,
Remember?
snail character.
Yeah, he did a million genius voices on it, like he always
Here's-
does. And so
here's
did
a little-
Kevin.
Yeah, here's a behind the scenes tidbit on the snail characters. Again, if you haven't seen the series, this won't make any sense to you. But in the 5th season, the crazy season, Maurice falls into the center of the earth, where he discovers there's all these bell people living
Bell
there.
people.
Now, originally, they weren't bell people, because as we discover, as the episode goes along, we discover that they're not actually bells. They're snails who are hiding beneath bells because they are being hunted by the French, who are trying to eat them.
That's right. As
And
escargot.
so that they became bells because originally they were just snails. And no, they were just bells. I'm sorry, they were just bell people. And our executive just went, that's just insane. Why are they're just bells in the middle of the earth? They go,
Sure,
"Yeah."
why not? Yeah.
Like, no, it can't be bells. It's just too crazy. And I said, well, what if it was some sort of animal living beneath the bells? And I think either she or me said, we said, well, like a snail. And they're like, yes, that was okay. It was snails wearing bells who
Right.
were hiding out. That was fine. But bells,
Right.
just bells? No, too crazy. Too insane.
The idea that the phrase "that's too crazy" could even apply to that show is funny. Now, going back and watching it now, it's
We got it every now and then we would get it. We
Yeah.
would just go too far.
I don't know, but I should tell you that I don't know if you know this, but I remember the one thing I regret about negotiating to do the role is I remember requesting that because I was like, it's going to be 22 minutes. Julian's going to be heavy in the show. I always love to do more voices, but I thought if I put in the contract that I'm only doing this, the contract only covers King Julian's voice, maybe they'll hire me to do other voices because I was stupid. Because, but anyway,
You
they
didn't realize
did.
how cheap they are.
They said
Yeah.
yes to it. And then when we were doing the first few episodes, Bob and Mark asked if I would do the Pancho voice. Will you do that? Will you do your Pacino voice of one of the characters? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we just kind of threw it in gratis, But that's the reason why I only did King Julian and Pancho. Whereas if I didn't have that in the contract, you guys probably went, hey, why don't you play this one? But then I did get to do get to do a couple other voices that we kind of snuck in there. Because I just, I always want to do more voices. And there was like one of the Walla voices. It was like my bad impression of Sylvester Stallone. And then when Pancho had that dummy, what was his name? Bert or something? Hey, it was this guy. Yeah. Shut up. I'll come over there and knock you over.
I don't remember. God, I don't actually remember. I remember that Pancho. I remember that Pancho believed that his family was fertilizer, was a bag of fertilizer.
Yeah.
In our Manchurian Candidate episode.
It was the Panchurian Candidate is the name of the episode. And there's at one point you have Pancho as a ventriloquist with a dummy.
I can't remember that one for some reason.
You got to go back and see it. It's hilarious.
What happened? Why
I don't
did he have
remember why he did it. There was some sort of talent. I don't know, but he ends up having an act as a ventriloquist with a dummy. And the dummy had a voice like this. Oh! He would tell a punchline and he'd go, oh! like Andrew Dice Clay or something.
I don't remember that.
He was like a high-pitched Andrew Dice Clay.
There are things sometimes that I think back to, did that actually happen on that show? And then I go, no.
Right. No, it couldn't have been. It's too crazy.
It was too crazy. I mean, do you remember the gun control episode where everybody in the village gets a scorpion? They're all like, there's like a scorpion.
Yeah,
we
they
did
got
like
holsters
a Martin Scorsese scorpion. That was the Bat. Remember the Bat that was basically the character from Taxi Driver?
Dietrich Bader.
That was Dietrich Bader.
Dietrich was Abner, but he was also Andy Fairfax. Yeah, come on down, folks. Yeah, we got all kinds of scorpions. Another genius on the show. Yeah, Dietrich's great. And Dietrich was, and he was Abner. who was they were like those podunk couple that was always, they were always plotting
They were
against
the hillbillies.
Julian. Yeah, they
Or
were plotting against
they
King
were always
Julian.
plotting to overthrow Julian.
Yes, yes.
Badly.
It was Diedrich Bader and wasn't it Andy's wife at the time, or
Yeah.
what's her name? Sarah? Sarah.
Sarah, who also played the other character that Andy played. What's his name?
Yeah,
Ted.
Ted.
Ted. He played
Ted the
Ted's wife.
fastidious.
He played Ted's wife.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, what a cast. And there's probably some we're forgetting about, but just genius after genius coming through those doors every week. And I just remember going, man, you got to always be on your A game.
You did, but those records were, I mean, they were always so fun because
Amazing.
I just remember I have a couple of them that I recorded video like towards the end, but of them. And
Yeah.
we were just laughing for like hours.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it was
literally
so
getting
silly.
an ab workout, free
Yeah.
ab workout for 4 hours.
Yeah, and everybody was, like you said, everybody was so game to do anything. You know, like, hey,
Yeah.
try this or try that or throw out some blah, blah, blah. Especially you and like Bennett, you know, he's hard to sequester. Just constantly throwing the new stuff out, and it was just killed me. And even towards the end, like, and India too really got into the improvising and everything.
Yeah.
And then Kevin was the master of, he'd just say one word or two words, like
He was
the
a
scene.
sniper. He was a sniper. He would wait, and then he would just pinpoint, boom, and then we'd always blow up.
Yep. I don't know.
We definitely messed up each other's takes a couple times by being in the same studio and just not being ready for someone to say something or how they were gonna, like, you know, there's a couple of takes where you just hear someone go. It's just so funny. I mean,
It was fun. That's why people used to come, and you know, that's why it was so much fun. We would have people just show up to watch the records. You know, we'd always have, because I forgot that sometimes we'd have 12 people in that room, and you only needed 2, you know, or 3. You know, 2 people to run the board and me, or me and Colette. But we would get like all the writers would show up, actors that weren't working would show up. Other studio execs would show up. People just loved to sit there and watch the show, watch us record because they were
so much fun.
so much
It was
fun.
like working in front of a live audience because of that. That's what made it great. Oh, and then the King Rat, wasn't that Bill Fagerbaki?
Oh, the mentally deficient rat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
He
Bill
always used to
Fagerbaki.
say it.
And Bill Fagerbaki.
Is it a maze?
Yeah.
No, it's
Bill
not a maze.
Fagerbaki.
Build a maze?
You just reminded me of another bit that I loved and I'd forgotten about. Bill Fagerbaki also played the zombie. Remember we did the whole Olympic episode where Julian is convinced they're going to win because they have this star athlete, and they go to the star athlete's hut and discover that he was crushed under his trophies years ago and he's dead.
Now I'm starting to remember.
So then the snake doctor resurrects him, but he's basically a zombie.
Yeah.
And then in another and then he and Mort bond, and then in another episode, for the first 5 minutes of the episode, we just started the episode this way. It's life at home with the zombie family, and they come home, and he comes home, and there's his family, and they're all zombies, and his zombie kid, and they didn't speak. They just would go, "Arr! Arr!" And we did that for 5 minutes, and then and then Mort comes to live with him, and then we did this Mrs. Robinson bit.
And his arm was always falling off, right?
His arm was always falling off. And then
Different parts.
Do you remember this part where Mort is living with him? And then the Faberbaki, as the zombie, comes home and discovers that Mort might be having an affair with his wife. And we did this whatchamacallit, shot from The Graduate between the wife's like zombie legs of Mort going, "Are you trying to seduce me?" And then it cuts to a shot of Mort in a pool, just sort of floating in a pool, like Dustin Hoffman.
Once you broke the seal on the Bizarro stuff, like There was that whole scene of Mort that was a knockoff of the Twin Peaks guy, or what was that scene? It was like in reverse.
Yeah, we did in reverse. Yeah.
It was literally a knockoff of a scene from
It was the Red Room scene from Twin Peaks.
right.
Yeah.
It was a dream sequence or a nightmare sequence or whatever.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean,
Ever have thought.
we just at a certain point, yeah, they just stopped trying to stop us.
They're just
And
like
it was like we just got away with stuff.
that pony was out of the barn, baby.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was so
So
much
great.
fun. It
So
was so much
great.
fun. I mean, do you remember the earlier episodes too, where Maurice and Julian were in the Fusa suit, and then Julian really likes it, and then they meet another Fusa, and then the Fusa basically has sex with Maurice.
Yeah, it's so messed up. And then what happens is I don't know, there was like a defecation bit where someone actually comes out the butt as if they're being
Well, there was the
squirrels
robot.
out.
There's the robot where Julian. They find out
Oh,
the
the
only way
robot.
to
He
deactivate it is
literally,
to go up the robot's butt. Yeah,
yeah,
and
they
then
had
Julian gets stuck in the butt. Yeah,
stuck in the butt. Yep. Yep.
and then and then let's not forget the song that's actually my daughter's one of their favorite songs from the show, Iron Booty, where
Iron
when Julian
Booty.
is captured by Uncle King Julian, and basically it's the equivalent of a prisoner being put in the hole, but instead they put an iron diaper on Julian so he can no longer shake his booty.
Iron
You know?
diaper.
And then this song comes on, Iron Booty, it's a booty made of iron.
Of course. Of course. Oh my goodness. I remember loved playing. I mean, I loved always when Pancho was in an episode. I loved it because you would crack up. I don't know why you found Pancho so. I do know why, but partially.
I found it
I
funny
just
because
get so tickled because you would get so tickled, and then I would just like, I have the best job in the world.
it
But
is
especially
because
when he had scenes with King Julian, like
yeah.
Pancho, what? It's like I don't know, King Jay. I think that creature's right above you, and he's coming for blood. Just the fact that you let
I
me
loved
do
it.
it was based
You would
on
go back and forth between young Pacino and old
an
Pacino.
old Pacino, yeah. Well, a version of it, you know. Yeah, it was like, yeah. It was more like you know, Pacino in The Godfather when he has his jaw broken. Can't really articulate so well. But then he would turn into scent of a woman, hoo-ha. Yeah. And then he was just this crazy like felon. And then the
Yeah,
fact that he was
I mean,
eventually that he was
he
eventually
was always, whenever push came to shove, he was always suggesting that they kill, they kill him or take him out or, you tell me what you need me to do, King Jay.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh God.
Oh yeah, blame it on the felon.
Yeah.
Yeah, those great lines. There was one time where Pancho came out of the bathroom and he was just like, "Do not go in there." Hoo-ah! Or he knows, "Hoo-ah!"
uh, oh man.
Well, then this was funny because you let me do the voice again, sort of on Big Nate.
Uh, did I? Was it?
It was this guy. He was a kid who was always doing the pranks. I think you had the
Oh, that was
audition.
in the pilot. A pilot of Big Day. Yeah, you came. Yeah, when you played. God, what was his? Lars was his name. The horrible kid. The kid who was escaped from a mental institution
Yeah.
for troubled children.
Yeah.
Who was actually, yeah, he was masquerading as an 11-year-old, but he was like 15.
He was
And
like, yeah,
it
yeah.
was crazy. Yeah, you basically did that. Oh, hey, Big Nate. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
one of that
he was like, "Hey, why don't you try out this basketball?"
Oh
His
man.
pranks were like horrific accidents, and he thought they were hilarious, right?
Always. Yeah, you thought they were
Someone would get horribly
anybody
injured.
would get hurt. He steals crutches from kids. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was an awful, awful kid.
yeah.
Oh man.
So great.
Oh,
I just
I
kept I was just like living in this fantasy land where I was like, as soon as we're done with episode 82, they're gonna come in with a reorder.
yeah,
Wishful thinking.
wishful thinking. Yeah, I still get it. I mean, I still get emails and stuff periodically like, why don't you bring it back? Why don't you do more? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not up to me. It's
We would love to. Yeah.
yeah, I think everybody would love to, but it's whether the hunger is there for it. But man, it was fun.
Oh,
I mean, that was I've
such.
worked on a very few shows that I had more fun on. There's been like three basically,
Yeah.
and yeah, Julian was definitely one of those magical shows. And then the fact that it's also actually, no, I should say probably the only show I've worked on that it was successful while we were still doing it,
Right.
A lot
That
of
was the
times it
thing that was
takes
unusual
several
about it
years.
because when they cut that deal, DreamWorks cut that deal with Netflix, they needed a ton of original content,
Right.
right? So they pre-ordered 78 episodes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it was like locked and loaded.
Which is
We knew we were going to do them, so we didn't always have to every season go, are we going to get re-upped? Are we going to get re-upped,
right.
right?
Yeah, and
That was really nice.
that never happened. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. I
Right,
mean,
it
you're lucky
doesn't.
if you get one season. If you get two, it's a miracle now.
Right, because
But
it's all
back then,
about the
yeah,
new
and
new
also
show.
too, because Netflix was new at that time, they weren't really giving us notes. I mean, every now and then we would get one, but
No,
it was
they were
pretty
like a
much,
buyer.
yeah, we
They
were
were
only
just like,
really
just
getting
do what
notes
you
from
guys do,
DreamWorks.
right?
Yeah,
Do
so
what you guys do. We'll be over here making our millions or
yeah,
billions.
that was also great that we only had the one master, and we were able to, and DreamWorks was on our side, so we got to do
Yes.
the show we wanted to do.
And that was part, at the time, that was part of the biggest deal ever struck.
Yep,
That net
300. If I'm
between
not
net,
mistaken, it was 300 half hours of programming.
yeah,
Biggest
300 or
deal ever.
400 original hours of programming, something like that.
Yeah.
And they were all exclusive to Netflix for that contract, which did elapse for those of you fans who wonder why All Hail King Julian is no longer running on Netflix. It's because that deal elapsed and they
Yep.
did not renew it. They did not renew the licensing yet. Maybe they will at some point, but if you want to see the show now, you have to go to some other means. You have to buy seasons or episodes. I don't know. Maybe it'll come to like Peacock or
Peacock?
NBC
I
Uni
thought
or
maybe it
something.
would come to Peacock one day, but
You would think.
I
I
don't
mean, it's their
think it
property
definitely
now,
has.
so
I mean, I have hopes that it'll come back to Netflix at some point because what Mystery Incorporated has been off and on Netflix since it actually went off the air on Cartoon Network. So
okay, yeah.
it's done really well, and
It would be
Netflix.
cool. I mean, they won a ton of awards with the show too. Netflix did. So,
Yeah,
I
how many did
mean,
we win?
we
7?
won a ton of
We were
Emmys on that.
nominated a ton.
We were
I think,
nominated for like 30 or 4, I don't know what,
yeah,
something
but I
ridiculous.
think I'm trying to remember how many we actually. I think we
I mean,
won
one of them,
7
you
or.
can see one of them over here somewhere.
I see 2 over there. It's one of those
Well,
for
one of those is from Penguins of
right. One of those
Madagascar,
penguins.
and then the other
Yeah,
one's from our show.
mine are
But we also
upstairs.
got 2 other nominations. I got 2 other nominations, both for All Hail King Julian. So I got 3 nominations for All Hail King Julian, and I won one of them. And then Freddie, and then he won Best Song, and then
We had best song.
we had a lot of them.
Uh, Freddie
A
and I
lot of
got
different.
best song. We won best show. We won best writing, best
Yes,
casting.
yes,
I think we
casting.
also won best sound mixing as
Maybe
well.
did we win direction at some point?
Don't know that we ever won direction.
Uh,
That one we not might
what a
never get.
shame. What a shame.
We got all the main ones except for I think directing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Great times, great times.
it was.
I hope that we get to do it again sometime, but anytime I get to work with you, my friend, it is a it's simultaneously an ab workout because of all the laughter, and just like it just like feeds my, it gives me that fix of like I did something really cool and fun and creative, and it'll probably end up being a great show to watch.
Yeah, it reminds me, somebody recently described the feeling of like, it's that feeling you get like, this again, you're only gonna know this feeling if you've done this, but like if you ever went to like a summer theater camp or some sort of summer kind of camp where everybody really worked together intensely for 3 months and you form relationships and then you just get that feeling of like, man, there's this weird vibe and a buzz that you get of like, gosh, I just don't want this to end. And we got to do that for what, 4 years, 5 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
it was
So
awesome. I mean, it's yeah, and it's so sad. I'll never get used to it. Everyone talks about it. You become like family with the cast and crew, and then one day it's over and everyone
yeah,
disperses. And like you were telling me, like even if you all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, let's do two more tack-on seasons," it's like you don't know that you'd be able to get. You'd have to get a different crew because everyone's already hired away, right?
it'd be very hard. I mean, we would probably be able to get the cast, maybe. I would say
Yeah,
most, for
the
the
cast
most
is the
part,
easier part.
yeah, all you guys are still around. The writers would be trickier because a lot of them have gone spread to the wind, although I see most of them. So that we might be able to get. It'd be the harder part would be getting the crew back, like the
Yeah,
storyboard artists and the directors that we had and
right,
Brett.
Brett. Yeah,
Depending on, because Brett's usually pretty busy, so
and Sharon, you ain't gonna find Sharon or Nick.
I would I
You
would
could
guilt
find her.
Sharon. I would guilt Sharon
You could
so
headhunt her
hard.
back. You could steal her back.
Yeah, I mean, just like, you owe me.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
doing this. So yeah, Mike
That's
Ryan, yeah,
amazing.
Mike and Elliot. I mean, the writers wouldn't be easy, but if it was a good window, we could maybe get them all back and stuff. It'd be virtually impossible to put that whole crew back together. But some of them, like our CG crew,
Mhm.
Christina and stuff. Christina, I could probably get. I mean, we could get. There's people we could get,
Yeah.
but we'd never be able to put it all back
No,
together.
you'd
That
have to have
would be
some
hard.
new, but then they'd be new folks would end up bringing something wonderful to it anyway
Yeah.
because there's so many talented people. But let's remind everybody watching again, please support this very worthy cause of 10kheroes.com. That's 10, the letter K, HEROES.com. You can learn more about this new treatment that's being developed that may make chemo a thing of the past for a lot of people, hopefully. And you can watch this telethon. If you're not already watching it, you're probably already watching it. But it's at youtube.com at 10,000 all numbers heroes. And we really appreciate you tuning in. Keep watching. There's more great videos coming up. And thank you so much for contributing. We sure appreciate it. And Mitch, thank you, my friend.
Daniel,
It's been
thank you to
great
you.
spending time with you.
Always, we don't get to spend enough time with each other, but when we do, it's
Yeah.
magical.
It
It's
takes
always
leukemia to bring
magical.
us together. That's the problem. Let's change that. Let's
Let's
change.
change that.
Yeah, let's change that.
If we never have to see each other again, we know we did something right.
We know we did
Good.
something right once.
Yes, exactly.
All right, brother.
All right, buddy.
Take care of yourself.
You too. Take care, my friend.
All right, you too. Take care.